Alright, YouTube, as promised, O'Keefe has dropped his racist tape. Now, it doesn't involve Hillary drunkenly ranting, but it will be funny to see her have to disavow this or completely ignore it. You've got several black donors and several Democratic donors and staff, one of which compares black Republicans to Sonderkommandos. Of course, the Nazi camp guards there, they were Jewish and they were given like maybe a double ration or a few Pfennig or something like that, a few Reichmarks in order to sort of watch over the other prisoners, pile them into their graves or whatever. It's rather telling that Hillary Clinton surrounds herself with people who have such absolutely bigoted views about everybody who happens to disagree with them on politics. Now, this isn't a surprise. Of course, Hillary Clinton has called her political opponents. It was funny to see, by the way, the media ignore this. Remember the time she was cracking jokes about how Trump or Drumpf or whatever was a German surname, and she did it cryptically as a dog whistle to her supporters. Oh yeah, my opponent's a Nazi, basically, but I'm not going to say that openly, which is exactly what it meant. Or the time she called, roughly 30% of the population deplorable and irredeemable. Or all the other statements that she's made over time. The Democratic Party, for some time now, has really been the party that calls minorities Uncle Toms or Oreos or Taco Bowl outreach or something. Minorities that don't agree with their fiscal views, especially, that choose to support any other reigning ideology. It's a form of talking down to their own minority voting base. The funny thing is, we get preliminary early voting results. I think it was from Florida. And black turnout there for the Democratic Party is down by double digits. Well, I'm not surprised. It's not just, by the way, Obama happens to be a racial minority and therefore it was just higher then. No, it's lower anyway. And the reason is Hillary Clinton is not specifically offering anything to anyone in this country, let alone black or Hispanic voters. What exactly has she said or done to advance even like I don't even agree with like the social justice warrior mentality. I just say we're all Americans, that's the way we should operate from, and all this other stuff is a side issue. It's bullcrap. But if you're of the mentality that there's a problem and you want to tackle it, like in the social justice warrior sense, what exactly is Hillary Clinton offering you other than some empty slogan that she shouts about social justice? Has she put forth any specific plans to ameliorate the situation? Even Obama, his own support among those groups is declining. The reason being he hasn't actually done anything. He's done nothing about police-involved shootings. He's done little about militarized police. We've got North Dakota now flying literally police-armed drones around. He's done nothing about that. The surveillance state still in full-fledged movement. We've got various wars that we're involved with around the world. We are at war in Syria, whether DC wants to admit it or not. It just happens to be a silent war that the media can ignore. The legacy media, that is. Those of us in the true press, we're not ignoring it, but the TV era dying out pundit talking heads with their $1,000 suits, they're certainly ignoring it. So it'll be funny to see Hillary Clinton once again embroiled in a situation where she has to probably make a statement on, well, why is this donor of yours, I believe a major donor actually, why is he comparing black Republicans to Nazis? It's very telling that this is the sort of person that she surrounds herself with. Again, with other people around her at times. Look at what Donna Brazile said. When questioned about the fact that it was revealed that she had meddled in the primary process, she started rambling about Jesus Christ and talking about how thieves in the night were coming to steal her emails and stuff like that. Regressing into sort of this weird, warped, almost like, I guess, Victorian era, like, Mama Jamaica style black speech or something like that, as though it was a play up to, black Democrats to try to shield her, I guess, from scrutiny, in hopes that she would, instead of looking like the millionaire blue blood that she is, she'd look like the average working class black American. I think it sort of fell flat, which is good. People are beginning to see through this act, this diatribe of the Democrats as some force for social justice. My goodness. How the hell? They haven't been a force for social justice since Jimmy Carter left office. Since then, the Democratic Party have been a bunch of neoliberals. They are indistinguishable from the Republicans, except that they use race and so forth as wedge issues. They talk a big talk about women's rights, black people, gays, and so forth, the trans rights, whatever the hell it happens to be. They talk about it during the election, and Trump is right when he says this. The second the election's over, they never talk about it again. They only do it when they're running for office. Once they're in there, they disappear. And they start talking about how to bilk people out of more of their money. And it's, funnily enough, certain parts of the country that are the most heavily minority filled, a place like, I don't know, Detroit or something like that, these are the places that have really been hit the worst. There and along the border with the Hispanic majority down there, these are the areas of the country that are hurting the most. Inarguably, the sort of that Rust Belt region in the urban centers and sort of the outlying, kind of industrialized suburbs, certain cities in the deep south, there are places that are overrun with crime in this country, and the Democrats haven't put forth any plan to take care of this. And now we have, Clinton's donor here. He's saying, these black Republicans, they're a bunch of fucking Nazis. They're going to destroy themselves. They're voting against their own self-interest, blah, blah. And he's a white dude, of course, which is really funny. It's funny how within the Democratic Party that always seems to happen, some white dude talking down to black voters. It's been a perennial issue. I like to think that more and more people are starting to look at this, see how really fucked up it truly is, and say, well, the Democrats haven't actually advanced a socially progressive agenda in decades. It's like when Obama is hailed as the messiah of gay marriage. All he did was step out of the way and not argue in favor of DOMA. He did nothing for gay rights. The Supreme Court ended up codifying it. A bunch of states were well ahead of the Democratic Party on a federal level. Some of the people that were active in pushing that were Republicans. And the first party that pushed it at all was the Libertarian movement, a good 2 decades before the Democrats grew some balls and said, maybe it's time to conform to the Constitution on this a little bit. And of course, they were arguing for civil unions at the time. They weren't even talking about gay marriage. They didn't give a fuck about that. It was a hot potato issue. They're not socially progressive. Not at all. They don't even want to touch these issues until the public moves in favor of or against something in rather large numbers. They don't even talk about it. For instance, look at drugs. Look at drugs for the perfect example of how the Democratic Party is a couple decades behind public consciousness. Increasingly, people want to see at least the softer drugs decriminalized. The Democratic Party had to be dragged kicking and screaming to legalizing marijuana, the most innocuous and least harmful of them all. It took them years and years and years to go from, okay, maybe it's not quite sort of totally the devil's plant, to, I think at this point we should, at the very least, we should have it medically legal. They're 2 decades behind a lot of people in this country. I've been saying now for years, it should be legal, or at least decriminalized for possession and grow a few plants. They should just deregulate it so that there's no law at all. No taxation involved if you don't fully legalize it. Just take a hands-off approach. It'd be like pencils. Well, you can manufacture your own pencils. You can make your own pencils. You can buy pencils. It's not a problem. It's innocuous. Nobody gives a fuck. Just don't try to drive down the street while ramming a pencil into your mouth any more than you drive down the street while huffing on a bong or something like that, I suppose. They're behind on these issues. Racial equality, they don't really care about the issue. Most of these people, Hillary Clinton is an old white woman. She probably is a bigot. Let's face it, she's from that time period where in her mind, ingrained through all of her youth was, I'm superior because I happen to have white skin. She's from that era. So, and she's, she's not exactly from what we would consider at that time to be a socially progressive part of the country. She was living in Arkansas for a long time, down in the deep south. Donald Trump's a New Yorker, born and raised. So I like to think he's probably secretly, and may not let this be known to, let's say, the Tea Party voting base. Yeah, he's a New York plutocrat, essentially. He probably doesn't give a fuck. If he can make money, he doesn't care if he's hiring a black man or a white man. Hillary Clinton probably does. She refers to all the minorities around her as the help, other than Reverend Al Sharpton, who himself, what's he ever done for the minority community? Absolutely nothing. Not one thing. The Democratic Party hasn't done anything for the black voter in 30 years. And yet they then look down upon people who happen to be black, who say, well, fuck this, I'm not getting anything out of the Democratic Party, so I'm just going to fucking ignore them. I'm going to vote for, maybe the Republican economic plan because it makes more sense to me. And it does. It probably would lift more black people out of poverty. Of course, I support libertarianism. I say I'd lift even more people out of poverty, but it's either plan is infinitely better than what Clinton's bringing to the table. Oh yeah, this black business owner in fucking Harlem or wherever, I'm going to tax you so much more because you're above that $250,000 threshold that everybody wants to ignore in the legacy media. You know how hard that's going to hit all these black-owned businesses in some of these high-tax urban areas? It's going to put them all out of business. You can look forward to 10 extra points of unemployment in black communities if Hillary Clinton is elected. I'm sure that this will do wonders for the problems of the inner city. I'm sure it'll just take care of everything. The same fiscal plan that will probably decimate those black urban communities, it's also going to decimate all the remaining industrial sectors of our country. West Virginia, they're fucked. What's left in Ohio, maybe parts of Illinois, Michigan, they're fucked. They're all fucked under her tax plan if she actually implements it. The one saving grace is that she probably wouldn't be able to because the House will still be controlled by Republicans. And then you just get stagnation for 2 to 4 years. Wonderful. I'm sure people will be receptive to this message. Yesterday, somebody held up a Bill Clinton rapist sign at a Clinton rally. And she starts ranting about how divisive and dangerous and violent and evil these horrible Trump fans are. And then her donors are talking like this in private. Oh yeah, black Republicans, they're like fucking death camp guards. She's nuts. She surrounds herself with these people. Do you not think she has a similar mentality? She said similar things. Deplorables, irredeemables, and everything else under the sun. The fact that as a senator she was against gay marriage and didn't appear to give a fuck about most of these socially progressive issues, why not? Because of political expedience. She'll take any side on any issue at any given time if you pay her enough, or if the public is conscious enough about an issue. If 60% of the public right now were to vote and say, I think we should force everybody to paint their roofs red because reasons, she'd be all on board with it. Oh yeah, I'm part of the Red Roof Council now. Give me some money so that I can fight for your worthy, noble cause. That's what Hillary Clinton is. So it'll be funny, the link in the description, of course, to the video. It'll be funny to see her, hopefully, forced to explain why she thinks that her own donor here is also deplorable. But then again, the legacy media may not report it. In their defense, right now the news cycle's completely garbled by the FBI scandal involving Hillary Clinton, so you can't totally blame them for pushing anything else aside. But yeah, they should report on it. They should say, oh yeah, Hillary's donor's just a total bigot. He's calling black Republicans death camp guards, so Sonderkommandos. It'd be very funny to see her actually get up on stage and have to answer for this. If the press would actually ask her a fair question once in a while, we could actually maybe wiggle her around, wrangle things through and get her to actually talk about something other than chai tea or how it's so great that she had working ovaries 30 years ago. Because that's all she wants to talk about. She's basically absent right now. She doesn't want to talk about anything to anybody. I saw a picture of one. It was funny. I don't know whether it was a CTR shill that's really bad with Photoshop or whether it was somebody making a joke about how actually Hillary rallies were really tiny. It was like some Fort Lauderdale, I think, rally, and they had it so terribly photoshopped. It made it look like it was a huge crowd, but there were like 3 Hillarys at the podium in that crowd, and like 5 or 6 instances of the same person holding the same sign, like 3 identical U.S. flags and stuff. And there was all sorts of clipping in the palm trees behind the stage and everything. It was very, very funny, and ultimately I think it might have been actually a Clinton person who posted this and hoped that nobody would notice. Because ultimately her campaign is on the skids right now. She's drawing fewer and fewer and fewer people in. She has one rally in Pennsylvania which approaches a 5-digit total, and people act like it's some monumental success. Trump replicates that multiple times a week, has no problem doing it, dwarfs even that largest Clinton rally. And that's a one-off for her. I think it's happened once before that she broke into the 5 digits. Otherwise, you see these, Tim Kaine is canceling several rallies because of lack of interest. He's drawing like 200 people. And he's lucky to even get that. Nobody even wants to hear him speak. I am now convinced that there is an invisible Trump vote in this country. I don't know how large it is. I don't know how many points he's going to gain on election night because of this. But I have reason to believe that it exists. I don't think that it's mythology. I've pushed rigged polls or flawed polling methodology largely to the back burner during this election, because there's no way for me until I see the actual voting results to compare that to polling over time, especially maybe a couple weeks before the election, and draw any conclusions about accuracy. It's impossible to do that. You can't look at last elections and say with any certainty that the same bias in the polls will be present. People point it to 2014. They say, oh, there was like a +6 Democratic bias overall in the polling. Yes, there was. And there's been Republican bias in the polling at times in past elections as well. You can't say anything about that. But when Hillary Clinton surrounds herself by people who can't manage secure systems, they constantly deride the American public. They talk about younger voters that we're living in our parents' basements and don't have a clue. Blacks who don't vote for the Democrats are basically Jewish death camp guards. 30% of the U.S. population is irredeemable. They're totally whacked out. They're total bigots, and yet her donors are the ones making constant bigoted comments. And you have generally an unlikable and untrustworthy Democratic candidate to begin with. I say it's not going too well for her. So yeah, O'Keefe's new video is out. It's not like a campaign killer. I think the campaign killer is the FBI investigation. This is just maybe the icing on the cake. A lot of people were expecting it to be Hillary or someone very, very high up directly, like Tim Kaine or Donna Brazile ranting in a racist fashion. Instead, we get some of these Democratic operatives and staffers. They're saying the same things, though. And don't think that Hillary Clinton's isolated from that. She apparently hangs out with all of these people. What do you think they talk about in private? That's about all. Peace out.